sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park, the championship meet, running now through Florida Derby weekend, March 31st.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. I am Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. We'll take a break, and in a couple of minutes, we'll be joined by Ellis Starr, racing analyst for Equibase. You can find him on America's Best Racing and beyond. You can also find his picks racing days at Woodbine, and we'll talk about his Woodbine pick today, as it is closing weekend for our friends up at Woodbine. But we'll talk also about the stakes in New York, the Los Al Futurity, and all that coming up shortly with Ellis Starr. We didn't talk about it on the Handicappers Report, but one of the things to watch for the last few days of racing in New York this year, Linda Rice is chasing the all-time win total for a year in New York, currently held by David Jacobson at 164. Linda Rice comes into today with 158. Today she has 7 horses entered, tomorrow 7. Some of those are in the same race. But then after tomorrow, the New York takes a little bit of a break through the 28th. They come back the 28th for 4 more days of racing. So there's only 6 days of racing left for her to get the 6 wins to tie David Jacobson. So we will see how it works out for Linda Rice, who's had a phenomenal year, obviously, in New York, including that late surge to tie with Chad Brown at Saratoga, and won a number of titles this year earlier. So it'll be fun to watch. Always fun, these little side stories on the human side of things. And in New York, the last 6 days of racing in New York. Again, today and tomorrow, and then 4 days, the 28th through the 31st, to see if Linda Rice can get 6 more wins and tie, or 7 and become the leader in that record of the annual total for wins in New York. All right, we'll take a break and come back. As noted, when we come back, we'll be joined by Ellis Starr. We'll take a look at some of today's stakes action and beyond. So stay tuned. We're underway. We're racing across America on a Saturday morning in December. Be right back.
And they're off in the Curlin, Florida Derby. White Aborio almost home.
And Nyquist is still unbeaten. Orb and John Velasquez have won the Florida Derby.
Barbaro wins.
And there you have it. Northern Dancer will be the winner of the Florida Derby.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. Seth Merrow in the studio, joined by our friend Ellis Starr, national racing analyst, Equibase. You can find him at America's Best Racing and beyond. Ellis, good morning.
Good morning, Seth. Good morning, racing fan.
And I have not talked to you since, but I did text you and congratulated you as I was Breeders' Cup weekend. I was out in the front portion of the building here, just meeting with people and talking handicapping on Breeders' Cup Day. But on my computer, I had opened the scoreboard to the BCBC contest because I knew a lot of people were playing, and so I was following various names. And you had a nice weekend, so congratulations.
Well, thanks. I mean, not nice as the Seth Merrow had and a lot of the top players, but I do think it was a lot of fun. I played in a lot of contests with buy-ins up to about 5,000 with 3,000, 4,000 of real money, but this was the bigger one, and it was fun. It was very interesting. The scores went crazy the last few races, as people saw. I thought it would be about 25,000 to get 10 to get some prize money, and was shooting for that pretty much. I started out with 6,000 the first two races of non-Breeders' Cup races on Friday, then kind of sat. I had a couple of bad luck, a couple of good lucks on Saturday, and then I had the exacta with the Elite Power and Gunite, but, of course, not like the winner that had 16,000. I only had 5,000. So, yeah, it was fun. It was fun to almost double the money and give me some confidence for playing at that level.
No, anybody who walks away with a nice chunk of money, I applaud. And yeah, the winner was insane. I mean, I think from hearing guys who play out there regularly, they kind of shoot to wind up with about 120. They think that'll be, and this guy, the winner this year, more than double that. He would have wound up with like $250,000, not including the prize money, then put him, over $600,000. That's a pretty good weekend. But as I say, I would have been happy with your weekend. You walk away with thousands of dollars. That's a fun weekend.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I ended up with, I think, 12-6 and 61st out of almost 600, so I can't complain about it. You just know, and to your comment, I think that's the goal going in for everybody, and then, of course, they adjust when they see that's not going to get it, and he didn't want to sacrifice all his money, which was a smart move, and he knew that if he hit it, he hit it, I mean, one example, I suppose, I thought about this, if I had a little more guts, I should say, I could have played a $4,000 exacta box and ended up with 40,000 because, just would have been, it was the way it went this year without the, Classic being the last race of the sprint. It ended up being fairly predictable in terms of, what people thought was going to happen in the payoff. Even for regular bettors, I mean, that $16 exacta for $2 wasn't really too shabby with those two horses.
No, it was very playable, very havable, and it made for kind of a fun last race in the contest and watching what happened. I will say, I look at that BCBC, and to be honest with myself, I don't know how I would work things out there because typically you have what the winner did this year. You have people taking just kind of insane swings. I mean, to me, if I went out there and all of a sudden I came into the last race and I'm holding $50,000, a lot of these guys are going to push all in. I don't think I could do that with $50,000.
Yeah, that's what was so interesting about listening to the interview that I think Pete Fornatal did with Seth Merrow, who happens to live in Lexington. I'd love to meet him someday. But I mean, the interview was, it was already 120, and that's, a guy with a family. He wasn't going to risk it. Where some people would go all in, and somebody went all in 20, 30,000 on some horse earlier in the day. It's just there's two entirely different mindsets. Entirely different mindset.
Yeah, and there is no question about it. And as I say, listening to some of the guys who are contest players and have done well in that contest before, they come in with the mindset, it's all or nothing. I'm walking away. It's also funny to hear some of them say, of course, I had to clear it with my wife first. I had to let her know, if I have 30,000, I'm playing it. And
It reminds me of the old joke, which I don't take up too much time, but you've heard it, where the guy goes to the track and he has $5 and bets to win. He parlays it. Second to last race, he's got $500,000 and he goes all in and he loses it. goes home. His wife said, "How do you do?" He said, "I lost $5."
And maybe that's the mindset here as well. Maybe the joke comes true. Yeah. All right. Let's get into it this afternoon. We'll take a look at some of the action from across the country, and let's start things out in New York. And there's a couple of New York Stallion Series races. The 8th is for the 2-year-old fillies. I pulled up a replay looking at the Ladyfinger back in September. It's going to be the number 3 Solo Shot getting it done. I landed on Solo Shot. Subsequent to this race we're going to look at, came back down to New York and kind of disappointed, was a dud in the key sense. I think the George Weaver runner is better than that, and I'm going to kind of hang my hat on this race up at the Finger Lakes 2 races back. Book of Wisdom is interesting to me, My Shady Lady. The firster from Linda Rice, East Stormy, coming up from Kentucky, I thought was intriguing as well. So I have it 11, 7, 2, and 3. But how did you see the 8th, the New York Stallion Series at Aqueduct today?
I have it 5, 6, 11, and then the exact is 5, 6, 11 over 5, 6, 7, 11, the 7th Book of Wisdom, who you mentioned. I like the 2 horses coming out of the maiden race. Solo Shot, definitely. And what's great about this race is the morning line favorite is My Shady Lady at 7-2. I mean, my gosh, what great value in this race if the favorite's going to be lukewarm like that. But the 2 horses coming out of the maiden race, Tour Jete, if I say that correctly, the 5, and the 6, My Perfect Mistake, and they finished 2-1 in a maiden race at Aqueduct at 6 furlongs on November 10th. And I watched the video, and it was a really, really good race, even though it didn't get a high figure, either Equibase or other figure makers. My Perfect Mistake sat in 4th, very maturely rallied, opened up 3, and then coasted. The Tour Jete actually, I think, was better because this horse had a really bad start, lost about 5 lengths. The start was okay, and then all of a sudden, you see that Fanny Franco, whether they checked him back really hard, lost 5 lengths, was 10 back after a quarter, was beaten 1 3/4. It wasn't asked that hard because Franco knew you weren't going to get the winner. Lascano rides and Not for Rice, which is really interesting here for me. And you're getting 8-1. The horse that won certainly could also improve. Second career start for Rob Atras, My Perfect Mistake. And as you mentioned, Solo Shot. I think that she is the speed of the speed. I think she'll go back to going for the lead. This is where Franco lands, of course, which is expected. And I think you can draw a line through the key sense as well. So 5, 6, 11, and Book of Wisdom likes to check in 2nd and 3rd. So 5, 6, 11 with 5, 6, 7, 11 is an exacta.
I like it. And as you say, I think there's going to be plenty of value in that race. Nice, big, competitive field. The 9th race today, also New York Stallion Series, this one for the boys. I'm going to pull up and take a look here at the November 17th maiden special race. It's going to be the number 2 Brick Ambush. I'm going in that direction for the Danny Gargan runner from Dean Reeves. Broke the maiden when stretched to a mile, now cuts back this afternoon to 7. I like that scenario. I would like to know the story behind the name, Brick Ambush. I said earlier, that's not a fun name. There's something there. But I use that one. BD Saints, I think, is playable. King Freud at perhaps a price off the maiden breaker. Now, it was for a tag, but I think it maybe was a light bulb kind of a race. Antonio Venice in my mix as well. But again, I'm going to go with Brick Ambush. What did you see in that 9th race, the New York Stallion Series?
Yeah, we agree. And again, no heavy favorite. BD Saints 5-2, morning line. Brick Ambush 7-2. I think a lot lower odds than the 8th race. I made it 12-9. BD Saints Brick Ambush and BD Saints, and I'm going to play 12-9 over 1, 4, 7, 9, 10, 12. Throwing in the 2 Rodriguez horses, King Floyd, 2 of the 3. Antonio Venice. 1, 4, 7. The Big Torpedo for Tom Morley, who ran 2nd first out, and the 10 Solo in Paris, who won by 6 in a cheap maiden claimer, but got a good figure. But Brick Ambush, what's interesting is, of course, the mile cutting back to 7 furlongs is phenomenal. Most horses there don't have that distance experience. The second best Equibase speed figure last out 80, and it's the 3rd start, so it should improve. And I looked up using Raceland. I looked up the other fold just to see, because I like New York Reds. I know a lot of New York breeders go back to the same dams and sires, and this happens to be a fold to a horse who I wasn't aware of that much, but I looked it up. Yokuz, who won $406,000 and won the filly division, which is, one race earlier today, in I think it was last year or the year before. So this horse is by Laban out of a tail of the Ducati mare, and Brick Ambush looks pretty tough. BD Saints second to Sleepy Hollow. He's a full to Le Bon Tom, who won $600,000 in State Bred Stakes winner for Linda. It's interesting, they thought this horse was all turf, and then all of a sudden the one dirt race wasn't that great, and they put it back on the turf at Sleepy Hollow. Maybe it was the mud, but it was a nice finish after being checked at the start. I think if BD Saints gets a little better early position, he could win. So I'm looking for some 5-2 or better for a win bet, and the exact key. And I'm also definitely playing doubles here from Tour Jete, my perfect stake at solo shot, to Brick Ambush and BD Saints. I'll play some pretty decent doubles.
I like it, and I particularly like that we agree there. So now I'm going to double up my exacta play there and see how that works out for me this afternoon. All right, let's move up to Woodbine, and we're just going to take a look at the finale at Woodbine today because that's your play of the day. And for folks who aren't familiar, it's closing weekend, but we've mentioned it when you've been on before. If they go to the Woodbine website and click on the expert picks link, you have a pick up there every day with a nice printable page kind of laying out your play. So I thought we'd take a look at that 10th at Woodbine this afternoon. And I know you like Frankie's Girl, and I pulled up the starter handicap from November 26th. Frankie's Girl is going to be the number one horse here, getting it done that day at 11-1. This is another great way to wind up the card today. They have a very full field. I would think there's some value to be had here. But give us your thoughts on the 10th at Woodbine on this Saturday afternoon. And again, we're watching Frankie's Girl.
I definitely, I gravitated towards this race, even though the 10th is usually their super high five race and not a race that I get involved in, usually making claiming. But man, a 14-horse field.
Yeah.
From betting perspective, you got to love it. Frankie's Girl is the 3-1 favorite. My Sunny Valentine is the 5-2 favorite, but she's the one also eligible in the race. But this is the last race on the penultimate day because they close tomorrow. And we had some success this week. I hope fans that follow me on Twitter saw that. I had a 5-1 over a 4-1 exactly with a top pick, 5-1 after a scratch on Thursday. And then yesterday, 5-2 over 14-1
nice.
Yesterday. So we've been pretty lucky here. But Frankie's Girl is a horse that's just feeling really good right now. She's won 2 in a row at turf and 7 furlongs on the all-weather, cutting back to 6 is not a problem. Rafael Hernandez has ridden her 3 times at the meet, 2 wins in a second. She gets some pace to run at for sure with Cara, the 2, the 7, Sentiment Bits, and the 9, Happy Valentine. And she's good value. She may not be a great win bet. I'm looking at the 5-2, but definitely in Jack. The other 2 I'm looking at is the 1 for Deho, who is the 4-1. Looks like the second choice here. It makes sense. She's the first or second in 9 of 19 on the Woodbine main track. She's already won at the conditions, so she's in for the optional tag. She was claimed by one of the top trainers at the meet, I guess second leading trainer, Marty Drexler. And then she ran that same Frankie's Girl race, and she finished 4th. But she was only beaten the head and nose for second. So I think it was a pretty good effort, and she should run pretty darn well here. She also won at the 6 furlong trip of the all-weather by 4 lengths at the level when she was in for the optional claiming price as she is today back in August. And then the 5, Jill, I should say, she's 8-1. She's 3 for 9 at the meet. She's had a really good meet. She's also one of the conditions, so she's in for the optional price. I like these kinds of horses, Seth. I know you talk about this, I'm sure, with me and other people, that when you have an allowance optional claimer and you look at the horses, you look at their claiming prices, you see if they're in for a claiming price, you see if they've won at the condition. It just means they're taking a second bite of the apple because this is where they belong and where they feel comfortable. So certainly this is another horse that could run really well. Emma Jane Wilson rode her to a win in September, rides her today, and some value at 8-1. So I'm looking at about 5-2, 3-1 for a win bet on one of these 3, and then I'll play an exacta 1, 5, 6. I'll throw in some others, but it's a great race to close out the card.
Totally agree. And again, Woodbine sponsors some of our programming during the year. We appreciate their support and happy to tout their product again on this closing weekend. And I'll ask you, I love the 20-cent play at Woodbine. I don't know if I want everybody to move to that, but the one track does it. Some of those pick plays, you can jump in. And I'll tell you, you think at the 20-cent increment, you're not going to get paid. But if you can get a clever one and a pick 4 up there, you're still going to get all right, even for the 20 cents, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's a lot of value in the 20-cent pick 3s, pick 4s. Super high 5 is certainly worth playing. Tomorrow, of course, will be a mandatory payout in their last race. I don't know what it's going to be. There was a big one a few weeks ago when they had a mandatory. And so everybody should take a look at the finale on Sunday as well.
Totally agree. All right, let's shift our attention down now to absolutely one of my favorite tracks this time of year. Speaking of value, I say it all the time. I think you can find all kinds of value at Oaklawn, and I love Oaklawn racing, so I'm happy with them opening up last week. And the feature today, the appropriately named Tinsel, and I pulled up a replay here of Churchill, November 26th. Allowance optional claimer. It'll be the number 6 Dennington getting it done. I thought the Ken McPeak runner at 5-1 on the morning line off of this race was very interesting this afternoon. Strong quality. Mark Casse sends this one over with a lot of early speed. Speed bias coming out of a near miss in the Fayette last time for Ron McKett is intriguing as well. But what did you see in the Tinsel?
Well, this is interesting because even though it's a 7-horse field, I think there's value. Because I do not like strong quality at all. That last race was a big win at Churchill at a mile 16th, but he was meant for the grass. I don't think he was entered to run on the main track because he ran on the grass 6 straight. And his last win before that in the grass in April at Keeneland was also wider. Then we had stakes. He's a need the lead type, and I think that last ever was inflated. Now, what's really interesting here is we talk about this. Even though this is not a great stake, Lasix comes off. And I looked at his 3 races without Lasix. He was 5th, 7th, and 4th. Now, granted, one was the Grade 1 Manhattan, the Grade 1 Arlington Million, and the Tappet. But he really gave it up in the last 1/8 of a mile after getting easy leads exactly the way he likes to win. So I'm going to take a stand against him. I don't have a big knock on Dennington, but what I really love, and I hadn't seen the morning line, is Double Crown, the 5, at 10-1. A horse with 8 wins in 10 seconds, a little more seconds than first, but 18 first or seconds, almost $800,000 in the bank, trained by Raymond Ginter, who took over for Built Right for Norm Cash. And this is a horse that won a race almost identical to Polynesian Stakes in September at Pimlico, off the pace by 4 lengths. I'm telling you, if Ardenwood, who's just outside of him, and Strong Quality go at it, you're going to have about a 47-second half and about a 1:11 6 furlong mark. And Double Crown is going to love it. He gets Ricardo Santana, which is good for me. Back in when he earned a lot of this money back in October of 2022 in the Kelso. I think he was first or second in the Kelso a year ago. He's run a lot since then, which is typical for this stable. You probably remember the horse that ran like 30 times in the year, and I can't remember his name now, for Cash, that won stakes and was just fantastic. And, if the horse says he can run, he can run. So you got a decent horse with decent figures coming off a decent second who has a win in similar. He's also cross-entered in another race. I didn't see. He was cross-entered in a race next week at Oaklawn. I'm not sure if he's going to go a week from now. The other Speed Bias, who is the 3-1 second choice, certainly no knock. I think you mentioned him. He was really game battling down a 3-horse photo with O'Connor and Miracolo, who's turned to a nice horse here. And he was second in the Pimlico Special back in May. Again, in Pimlico, that Pimlico form seems to hold up really well at Oaklawn. And he was second at the leading, but he doesn't need the leading, come from off the pace, and he gets Vasquez. So I'm going to bet probably Double Crown to win and box to 5-4, maybe play them over a few other horses. Actually, play them over the 1. The 4-5 over 1-4-5 War Campaign, who he ran second and third in his last 2 and could finish up decently.
All right. I like it. And finally, we'll go out to the West Coast and check out the 2-year-olds in the Los Al Futurity. It's a field of 6, and I'm looking. Baffert has, no surprise, 3 in here. I'm going to take a look at the maiden special race from Del Mar, November 10th. It is going to be number 9, Coach Prime, for the aforementioned Bob Baffert. This was start number 2. It was the first win of the career after debuting at Santa Anita back in October and running 3rd. Comes back in November, and you can see a nice big win at Del Mar for Coach Prime. Moonlit Sonata for Yachtine looks a little bit interesting off the debut maiden breaker. Bob Baffert also has Wind Me Up and Winstock, who look intriguing. Stronghold coming in off the second in the Bob Hope behind a horse a lot of people are raving about, Niso. Stronghold looks interesting. What did you see in the futurity?
Yeah, this is our Echo-based race of the week. 2-year-olds, and last week the one Baffert I liked ran bad, and the other one won. And I'm looking at them here, but in terms of how mature a horse is at this point and the experience, Coach Prime, hopefully, he was 7-5, he's 2-1. The other Bafferts take money. 2-1 would be a gift, I think. But if you wanted a mile, his debut was on turf, and I think I've heard a lot of stories of trainers starting their 2-year-olds on grass just because it's easier. And even though they're dirt horses, so I'm not deceived by that. I don't think they thought he was a grass horse, but he ran well and pressed the pace. And that was a mile on turf, of course, which in East isn't that difficult, but on the West Coast, it's really tough to win first out in the turf route. And then that 7-length win, Pratt staying aboard, a big turn of foot going from 6th to 1st on the turn, and a huge 96 Echo-based speed figure for a 2-year-old this time of year. So I've got to look at him. I probably 9-5, I would bet him. Otherwise, I would just watch the race. Stronghold's really interesting, as you said. The horse that beat him, Nisos, is another Baffert. And, he made a middle move into Nisos and had no shot. He was still 3 clear of the next horse. He did win in a mile before that, which I really like. At Churchill, it was a 1-turn mile, and he put in a nice work. Moonlit Sonata is interesting, and he's 5-1 morning line, and I would not hesitate to bet him. He got a 90-figure first out, so it's actually the second best, fastest Echo-based figure in the field, and it's actually the same buyer, 75, as Coach Prime. And that was an interesting race. King had 2 in the race. Baffert had 2. One of them was really overbet. That actually was, speaking of contest, that was a Del Mar contest on November 25th. And I defensively bet $20 on the horse. I should have bet 100 because I liked the other Yachtine as well. And this horse just ran out of his skin. It was just off slow, relaxed, rallied. He's got the same kick as Coach Prime that could be moving there. So I would definitely consider an exacta box of the Moonlit Sonata and Coach Prime.
I like it. You say you had 20 on Moonlit Sonata. That wasn't a bad day, though. 100 would have been better.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a bad day, but the 100 would have got me an NHCC. So
yeah, okay. I got you. Ellis, as always, appreciate the conversation and thoughts. We will tell people again, you can find Ellis's work over on Equibase, the race of the week, over on ABR, America's Best Racing, and beyond. And wishing you and yours happy holidays and a happy new year, and we will talk soon.
Yep, and don't forget, you can follow me on X at UberCamper.
Yeah, our little graphic on the screen has had your handle up there the whole time. I love that newspapers now, when they refer to somebody on X, the immediate thing is parenthetically afterwards, formerly known as Twitter. It's in every article now. And when people mention it, nobody talking said, when you're talking to somebody, everybody says, "Oh, I looked on Twitter. Oh, somebody tweeted. I looked on." Nobody says X. Why did he go to X? Nobody's buying into that.
He loves the letter X. That's all I can say.
Ellis, again, happy holidays, and we will talk sooner rather than later.
Same to you and everybody listening. Take care.
Appreciate it. Ellis Starr, National Racing Analyst for Equibase and beyond. And again, some thoughts for this Saturday, mid-December afternoon. I'm looking. They're showing the flag, so I'm assuming they're playing the national anthem in New York. So, again, with that 11:50 post time, they're going to kick off the pregame show shortly. But before I wrap up here, it is closing weekend at Woodbine. So I pulled up last night. And I always say it's fun when you get down to the end of a meet and there's a real, for the jockey title and or the training, not at Woodbine. It's sewn up. Kazushi Kimura with 156 wins is leading Savachi at 129. So there's a 37 margin of lead with 2 days left. So again, Kimura clearly going to be the leading jockey at the meet. And it's similar on the trainer side with anybody want to guess who else? Our friend Mark Cassie leading over Marty Drexler, 111 to 84. But again, that one's in the books already. So there isn't quite the storyline on the human side of things up at Woodbine, other than great performance by both of the leaders during this 2023 season up at Woodbine. And again, they wrap things up tomorrow at Woodbine. And as Ellis noted, tomorrow means mandatory pays in the various, and on occasion there is a nice little pool in that super high five. So take a look tomorrow at Woodbine, if not today, but certainly tomorrow with the mandatories, and see if there's a little something you may want to dive into on closing day north of the border. All right, I'm going to wrap things up because, again, it does look like they're kind of kicking things off in New York. So we will wrap it up. We will send it to Naira for the pregame show. They kick off at 11:50, so I'll be back in a little over an hour or so to kick things off for an OTB Live on a Saturday afternoon. Thanks for joining us this morning. And, again, we'll see you shortly. OTB Live. Stay tuned. We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park, the championship meet running.